Everybody knows that in 2022 I gave MusicalCon a rather scathing review in which I said I went for free and I still felt ripped off. Then again in 2024 I said you'd get so much more bang for your buck spending 60 quid literally anywhere else in London. Do we think MusicalCon's been able to take any feedback on board over the last couple years to redeem itself? Well, let's find out. Hello you lovely lot, and welcome back to a brand new stagey video here on my channel. Now you're probably sat here thinking, Flora, didn't you already make a video about MusicalCon? Yes I did, but it's been a whole year, meaning it's time for my annual review of this stagey event. I say that as if I've ever reviewed it more than once here on YouTube. But I mean, can you believe it's been a whole year? It's been a whole year since MusicalCon 2024, so I was very intrigued to see what MusicalCon 2025 had on offer. And not to tease you guys with some juicy information, but let's just say I won't be back again after this year. Because my constructive criticism last year seemed to be taken rather personally by the event organisers, I'd love to say right now that this is 100% just my opinion, and there's so many people out there that very much disagree with me. Everything I'm about to share and say is entirely based on my experience of this event over the last 4 years, as I have been attending since it started. Now, I think it's also worth me saying that my motives in making this video aren't in any way to have a massive go at MusicalCon or its organisers. I genuinely just want to use my stagey platform to hope that some sort of feedback actually makes its way over to the creators of MusicalCon, because I do think there is still great potential in this idea. I just don't think the execution is quite right yet. So my hopes is that this is not seen as criticism and more kind of constructive feedback off which we can build this event into something bigger and better than ever. As someone who regularly attends conventions outside of MusicalCon, I do hope that the organisers see this and take what I'm about to say on board. Whilst I'm not going to sit here and claim I know exactly what to do to turn MusicalCon into this flawless 10 out of 10 event, I do think some of the things that I'm about to flag that I also flagged last year would help this event in moving forwards, allowing it to expand and deliver on one of the stagiest weekends in London. Now, before getting into my full thoughts and feelings on this event, now before I dive headfirst into this review, I thought it would be very important to give you guys some context, or musical context, if you will. As please know that the feedback you gave me for missing out that pun last year has stuck with me for a full year to the point I'm including it now, so I hope you're happy. This context hopefully helps you guys frame where all of my thoughts and feelings are coming from, to hopefully help you draw your own conclusions on everything I'm about to say as well as just give you guys a bit of background on the event. Now, MusicalCon first took place in 2022 and has run every year since, with this year being the 4th year it has run. It takes place at the XL Centre in London, which is basically a massive convention centre where lots of other big UK conventions are held, like MCM Comic Con. Star Wars Celebration was held there when it was in London, so it is definitely an event space. And MusicalCon is very much marketed as the largest musical theatre fan convention in the world. I don't know how true I would consider that statement when you have BroadwayCon literally right there, but it's MusicalCon's word against mine, I guess. And of course, this event is set up, organised and run by Chris Stewart and Shanae Holmes. Shanae Holmes, many of you probably knowing from her role as Nancy in Oliver. Shanae is also, of course, the face of this event, more so than Chris is, and I very much get the sense that MusicalCon is like her baby, so I do hope if she does see this video, she doesn't see this as me kicking her baby, and more me just trying to tell her how to make her baby less ugly. All across the branding for this event, it's very clear they want it to be a space where musical theatre fans can come and gather and really find community with one another, and I guess on the surface it kind of does that, if you overlook everything else I'm about to say later in the video, especially ticket pricing. I also think ticket pricing is probably another great thing for me to cover in this section, so let's get into that now. Of course, I covered ticket pricing in huge detail last year, so I figured it was only fair that I do the same this year. Now, I will say that MusicalCon did seem to come to their senses a little bit when it came to ticket price. Last year, they were criticised quite a lot for it being quite an expensive event to attend, and as such, I do think we see that reflected in this year's ticket prices. So to get yourself through the door this year, meaning your most basic one-day ticket, you're looking at a price of £45, although it would have cost you £35 if you booked it early bird, basically meaning if you booked it before you knew any of the lineup. The whole weekend would have cost you £75, which is not too bad, right? And both ticket prices were down £14 on last year's prices. But hold on, there are more ticket options, okay? For £99 this year, which is £10 down from last year, you could book a priority ticket. Priority to what, I hear you asking? Priority to booking things like the masterclasses, the stage door experiences, and the workshops, all of which I will touch on a little bit later. And finally, our top of the range ticket this year was again the VIP ticket, which would have set you back £225, which would get you access to both days of the event, a VIP line so you got into the event quicker, a VIP viewing area for the main stage, priority to booking things like the stage door experiences, masterclasses and workshops that I mentioned in the priority ticket, as well as a merch bundle, so a tote bag, a t-shirt and an exclusive pin. The VIP ticket in 2024 would have set you back £219, whereas this year it was £6 more expensive at £225, making it the only MusicalCon ticket in 2025 to be more expensive than the 2024 tickets. So as you can see, there was a variety of ways to get yourself through the door at MusicalCon, and what you pay for this event is definitely something I'm going to touch on a bit later in the video, so do stay tuned for that. Now, this is usually the part of the video where I say a big thank you to MusicalCon for inviting me along to review and take you guys along with me to this event. But I can't, because they didn't. That's right, for the first time I wasn't invited back. Now, that's fine, right? I was never entitled to attend, and I would never expect an event to invite me just because of who follows me on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram. It's totally up to them who they want to invite, and if me not going means that another small creator gets the chance to attend and grow their following off the back of it, then I absolutely support that, because that's what MusicalCon did for me originally, back when I had nowhere near as many followers as I do now. However, I was technically invited this year, but not long before the weekend rolled around, I was told quite plainly that there was no room for me to attend as press, which is perhaps totally valid, but let's be real, we all know the reason. I wasn't invited back. That's right guys, after 3 years, it seems my YouTube video critiquing the event last year seemed to be the straw that broke the camel's back, or should I say the fire that burnt the bridge. I just find it odd that no one else had their invite rescinded on the grounds of there not being enough room. 2 and 2's not making 4, if you will, especially because the event was far from sold out. But far from sold out actually worked in our favour, because I decided to just buy a ticket. That's right, I spent my hard-earned money on this event because I genuinely wanted to see if any of the feedback they'd been given over the last couple years had been put to use to improve this event for the better. I went of my own accord and, like I said, spent my own money, so everything I'm about to say is no longer clouded by the fact that I'm an influencer who got the VIP treatment for free, effectively. I do also really want to say that I hope this video doesn't come across as me just being negative because of what happened in terms of my invite to attend this year. I would like to believe anyway that I still gave the event a fair chance, especially because it was my own money I put on the line this time as opposed to just being there for free. But I do totally understand how it could come across as me just being bitter that they didn't want me there this year. So I thought I would give this context anyway, as it's important for you guys to have. But at least now that you guys know where my relationship stands with MusicalCon and its organisers, I mean, let's just say we won't be sending each other Christmas cards anytime soon. It's time to get into what you guys really came here for, and that is for me to share my thoughts and feelings on MusicalCon 2025. So let's get into this. Now, believe it or not, despite what I've been posting on my other platforms, there was actually a fair bit that I really enjoyed about MusicalCon 2025. I have to say the biggest highlight for me, as it has been in previous years, have been all of the other musical theatre fans. I do think MusicalCon does a really good job of congregating everyone in one place, which is great. It means you can chat to people about your favourite musicals, make new friends because you love the same musicals, chat about performers, compare which productions you've seen, and just genuinely connect with so many people because you all love the same thing. And I also have to take the time to say thank you to anyone that came up to say hi to me. I genuinely had so much fun chatting to everybody that I spoke to at MusicalCon on the Saturday. It was so lovely to hear about what you guys were getting up to, who you were dressed up as. I mean, some of the cosplay you guys were rocking was literally insane. So massive thank you for everyone that came up to say hi and chat. It was so lovely, and I've always said this about any convention I go to. The best thing about them is that you know you have at least one thing in common with literally everybody there, and it makes going up to people and talking to them far less daunting, right? You know, worst case scenario at MusicalCon, you can talk about musicals with someone. Even if you support different football teams, even if you're vegetarian and they like a good steak, okay, that doesn't matter because you all like musicals, and that is just so nice and so lovely. And I think, yeah, it takes down those barriers of approaching people and talking to them that maybe exist outside of a convention space. Again, like I said, I think this is what I have always loved about conventions, be it MusicalCon or something like Star Wars Celebration. You might have your differences. Maybe you think Heather's is good. Maybe you think Mean Girls is better. Maybe you're arguing over which clone trooper has the best armor. It's Commander Wolf, by the way. I won't be taking any debates on that. There's just so much you can talk about for this one topic that you are all there for, and it's so nice, and it does just create such a special atmosphere that is really hard to recreate in other settings because it's very rare rare that so many people of one fandom are congregated in one place like that. Especially when you think about it in terms of theatre, 99% of what you do when you actually go on a trip to the theatre is sit in silence in a dark room, okay? Let's be real. Outside of the interval and maybe the sort of before, what do you call the before the show bit? When everyone's arriving, maybe getting a drink, maybe finding a seat, taking a picture of their programme with the stage, there's not a whole lot of opportunity to really chat with people. You might get it a little bit at stage door whilst you're waiting for performers to come out, but other than that, there isn't really a chance to chat with people and make friends at the theatre because you're not going to do that whilst the show's on. So it is lovely, again, like I'm literally repeating and sounding like a broken record, that Musical Con does facilitate that. However, if I was being overly critical, I would say that I don't think this is necessarily unique to Musical Con, as you do get similar experiences at things like West End Live, which I can attend for free and chat to people in the same way. So I would say I don't necessarily think £45 is worth it to stand in a room and chat with people, but of course I had to highlight that it is a positive of the event. It would be rude not to, because it did genuinely make my day and facilitate me having so much fun. Moving on, another highlight is of course the amazing stagey small businesses that were in attendance. I always love having a little shop at conventions. You can pick up some really cool unique items, and of course I love chatting to the amazing people that run these businesses. Now again, I could have ordered most of what I purchased, if not all of it, online and just had it shipped to me without having to pay for the privilege to buy them in person. But it is always nice to chat to people, like I say, that are behind the products you are purchasing. Plus, if you're like me, you don't like having to wait for stuff to be shipped to you, so being able to pick it up then and there was really nice. Speaking of a few things that I picked up though, I think it's time for a little haul, don't you? And when I say little haul, unfortunately, I do mean little. First up, we have the show programme. Now this is free, of course, and it's mostly advertisement, but it does have a handy map inside as well as a list of what is on offer on the Saturday and the Sunday, as well as timings and where you can find it, which is always lovely. A lovely follower also gave me this super cute Musical Con keychain, which of course I will be keeping very safe and sound. And then I also picked up a Dorian Gray sticker from the musical that was being advertised there. I couldn't tell you much more about it because the lady at the stall for it couldn't tell me much about it either, but it's nice that she gave me a sticker. The biggest thing that I actually went for was this Normal Is Not a Myth Percy... Oh, it's not going to focus! I'm doing the influencer hand thing. This Normal Is Not a Myth Percy Jackson pin, which I've been dying to add to my collection from Musical Theatre Pins. I have a number of their pins, actually. Let me find them. I have there... I don't know if you can see them behind me. I'll show them, I'll put close-ups in, shall I? I'll do the influencer thing. I've got their Something Rotten, School of Rock, and Operation Mincemeat ones, which I added to my collection because these shows, when I went to see them, did not have pins. And the same goes for this Percy Jackson one. Percy Jackson has buttons, not pins, and as you can see, I like a pin for every show I've been to, so I'm very happy that I was able to pick this up. And then the biggest thing I purchased, I'm gonna have to lean out of frame to grab these, is I added a new Peter Hanna print to my collection. Now if you don't know, Peter Hanna is this incredible artist and I adore the prints he makes. He does them for so many West End theatres and so many shows that go into these theatres. That's probably really hard to tell from where you guys are, but this is actually the Noel Coward Theatre and it is decked out in its comedy about spies livery, I suppose. Livery? That's very F1 of me. And you might be wondering, Flora, why have you picked this up? Well, it's because it goes lovely with the Duchess Theatre that I purchased last year, which is The Play That Goes Wrong, and I do intend to add another couple to my collection. I think they look quite nice together and I would like them to all be Mischief, because if you didn't know, I love Mischief. I had my eye on this and I didn't necessarily go to the event thinking I would purchase this, but then I got chatting to Peter and his wife Bryony. Bryony, some of you may actually know as being a member of Mischief, and can I just say, great salespeople, because I was convinced to add this to my collection and I love it already. So I will be definitely finding a frame for that to go in. But that is my haul. Like I said, very small this year. I was very restrained, mostly because I can't spend all my money at Musical Con. I spent enough of it on my ticket. The stagey small businesses are all incredible, and a real, again, highlight being able to meet the people behind what you're purchasing is just so lovely, and I love that. Again, every year I've been to Musical Con, I have adored it. And finally, the performances that Musical Con had on offer were fun. Of course, I'm going to talk about them a little bit more later on in the video because there were also also drawbacks to these performances, but I did for the most part enjoy what I got to watch. Because it is a small ticketed event, MusicalCon is kind of like West End Live but more intimate. You get to see some amazing performances up close and personal without having to stand in the cesspit that is West End Live every year. It also gives performers the chance to sing songs that aren't normally, say, in their repertoire. For example, we got Lauren Drew singing I Dreamed a Dream, which was fantastic, and it's always lovely to see performers challenge themselves in that way by performing something that they've never actually been cast in before. I'm probably phrasing that wrong, but that's how I feel. And I mean, it's always fun, right? Like, it's really hard to fault a phenomenal West End performer getting up on stage and singing. They always sound good no matter what they're singing, and it is really enjoyable for the most part. I did enjoy some performances more than others, but again, that's just a taste thing, right? But again, it's up to you whether you think this more intimate setting is worth the price when you can get similar performances at an event like West End Live, which again is free. The only other highlight I have was the Lion King display. Okay, it was small, but it was mighty. They had 6, 7 if you include baby Simba, 7 costumes on display. 2 of those costumes, 3 maybe if you count Zazu, having puppets. So you have the zebra puppet and the cheetah puppet, and the puppets in Lion King are gorgeous. They also had a display with a number of the different masks, as well as brilliant informational signs that told you about how they made them, the different patterns, the different fabrics, things like that. And particularly with the masks and the fabrics and stuff, it was really interactive and tactile. You could touch things, you could pick things up. And what I also really loved was that the display panels, so props to Disney for this, had Braille on them as well. I haven't seen that before, particularly at MusicalCon, and I thought it was brilliant, and I really did love that. And seeing these gorgeous costumes up close and finding out a little bit more about them was so lovely. I know on the Saturday, no, not the Saturday, I know on the Sunday as well, there was a Lion King talk, which unfortunately I missed, but I did hear was really fascinating. So yeah, I had to include that in the highlights as well, and I did really enjoy that. I wish it had been a bit bigger. I wish there had been representatives from the show there potentially to talk to us a little bit more, but I can't, you know, demand that of anyone, I suppose. So I thought I'd throw this into highlights as well, as it was really nice, and it is more of what I would like to see from something like MusicalCon. Costumes on display, perhaps joined by sewers or makers or designers, things like that. People we could talk to about these, and potentially again encourage people to pursue things like theatre design and stuff, roles that are vitally important but obviously not flashy and woohoo, I'm a performer on stage. So right, okay, that's the highlights done, guys. I wish I had more to say. Before I get into lowlights, I think it is worth pointing out that I did have fun. Like I said, I did enjoy myself, but I think it's pretty safe for me to say I didn't necessarily enjoy myself because I was at MusicalCon, if that makes sense. I always love talking to my fellow theatre fans. It's so much fun, and I love chatting to people when they're passionate about something. Like, I'm passionate about musical theatre. Like, I cannot fault that, but at the same time I can get that experience elsewhere, and so I don't want this to be mistaken as me having had a miserable time. I was by no means unhappy there, but I do think if it hadn't been for the other people talking to me and everyone chatting and stuff like that, if you took that out of the equation, I would have left with it about half an hour and been quite disappointed. And I think that's what I'm really about to dig into with this sort of lowlights section, if you will. But before we get into all of that, this is your moment to pause the video, go get yourself a snack, go get yourself a drink, okay? Because it's about to get long. Now, before I dive fully into these lowlights, I would love if you guys firstly shared your own experiences and opinions of MusicalCon down below, as I know everyone had vastly different experiences, and what you experienced and what you enjoyed might very much differ from mine. And also, while you're at it, give this video a thumbs up, and if you're not already, please subscribe, as it does really help me in terms of giving me the motivation to continue creating video content. And again, before I get too far down the road, I don't want this to come across as just some big negative phony shit on them while they're down kind of talk. I do genuinely hope this is seen and taken as constructive criticism. That's what I want it to be. That's what I intend for it to be, as I do think if some of this is at least considered and potentially changed moving forwards, then this event could grow and thrive. So whilst it's not necessarily a quick or easy fix, hopefully we start to see some movement in the right direction from this event and the organisers. But with that little disclaimer out of the way, let's get into this, shall we? The whole slogan of MusicalCon every year is "This is for the fans," right? It's slapped across everything. It's their chosen hashtag. But every year I disagree with this. I think the convention and the organisers fail to appreciate just how narrow their view of a theatre fan is. So much of what's on offer year in and year out is aimed at wannabe performers, future hopefuls that dream of gracing West End stages one day. Think 14 to 18-year-olds who one day dream of taking to the stage. 15% of the overall overall event is actually stage school related, with 5 of the 15 main stage performances across the weekend being stage school performances or showcases, if you will. When you add this to the fact that the masterclasses and workshops are all sort of learn this dance routine from this person or sing this song with this person, then it very much just adds to this atmosphere of it being aimed at people who dream to be performers. And there's nothing inherently wrong with this, but if you are a musical fan in the shoes that I am in, where you've already been and graduated, you've got your master's degree, you're a grown adult, you've got a job, and you enjoy theatre and are a theatre fan in the sense that you enjoy going to the theatre and watching theatre and engaging with theatre in that way, you can feel a little bit out of place in this event. And year after year, it increasingly feels, at least to me, and it could just be a me thing, like the event is catering to a younger and younger audience. So if you're like a childless 20-year-old going, it's quite easy to feel a little bit out of place because everyone around you is with their parents and so much younger. If you're a theatre fan who has no interest in being a performer, what's on offer at MusicalCon is severely limited. And because of that, this is for the fans feeling is a little lost on you because you can't help but feel slightly out of place because you are other to the majority of people in attendance, which is never really an atmosphere you want to create in a convention. I also think because of this and because of the dominance of stage, real quick, I'm not saying that we shouldn't offer stage schools the opportunity to perform at events like this. The showcases are always fantastic, but because of the atmosphere and the dominance of the stage schools in terms of their presence on the convention floor and on the main stage, it really does feel like drifting away from this idea that it's supposed to bring fans closer to their favourite musicals, right? Because how am I supposed to do that with a stage school? I also think the way the convention sort of portrays and treats musical fans almost feels similar to how the media portrays One Direction fans, right? They're in love with all of the performers. They, you know, are desperate to be them, be seen with them, be liked by them, and it just almost tries to establish this celebrity around the theatre stars that I maybe just have never felt. I mean, I personally feel very weird about celebrities anyway, and as someone who has had the great fortune of meeting so many of these performers and being friends with a number of them and things like that, I'm like, guys, they've all had like diarrhea too, like they're literally just humans. I know it's a gross way of thinking about it, but we are all human at the end of the day. And so this kind of like idolification of these musical theatre performers at an event like MusicalCon is just, to me, is really weird. And again, to me, creates this sense of musical fans just being fans of performers, and I don't really know how to describe it. I'm hoping it's coming across right, but the vibes were just a bit weird, and it's sort of like, this doesn't represent me and a whole sector of theatre fans as theatre fans, right? Like, there is so much more to us than just dreaming of being on stage one day or being a failed performer and therefore all I do is just watch theatre all the time. Ugh, I don't know. It's so frustrating because it could be so good. I'm a theatre fan. I would love to spend so much time learning about how shows are designed, how they're staged, how they're lit, how everyone's mic'd up, how you handle sound, how you handle the orchestra, but none of that is present. It is all about the performance. And in a world where performers are constantly moaning that the line between professional work stuff and these parasocial relationships that fans are forming with them, it all just seems a bit all over the place, okay? There is so much more to musical theatre and what fans want from musical theatre than I think MusicalCon is putting on the table. It is only offering up the, here is how to become a performer pathway, and here is your favourite performers doing the job that you one day hope to do, when you could teach us so much more, right? Get kids into the backstage world, okay? Stage managers, lighters, costumers, things like that. Where are the talks from these people who I'm so sure would love to be up on a stage doing a panel? I get it's not as fun and not as clickbaity as getting these performers up singing songs that they've maybe not sung for a couple years, right? But I think who the convention thinks theatre fans are, or at the very least the theatre fans they are catering to, is such a narrow scope, and I think it really hobbles the entire event in terms of what it could offer and the potential it has. And I hope all of that has made sense. I realise I'm rambling. In case you didn't know, usually I script my videos, but I gave up on that because I came home from work and was like, right, I've got to film a video. So from here on out, I apologise for rambling if I haven't rambled too much already. But yes, hopefully that comes across as who the event thinks theatre fans are versus who theatre fans actually are. There's a big disconnect and it's not working for me. Moving on, the next low light for me was the cost versus the overall experience. Because speaking of things things to do, it is such a shame at this event that so much of what is advertised as being on offer is locked behind a paywall. Okay, I did the maths, right? Of everything listed on the schedule for Saturday alone, 53%, so just over half of what was advertised as being on offer would have cost me extra, a minimum of £15 or more to go and do. I mean, think about it, right? £75 for the whole weekend maybe isn't that bad, but think you are a parent who's got 2 kids coming with you. That's 3 lots of £75 that you might have to spend on tickets for you guys to get in there. And then God forbid both of your kids want to do workshops or masterclasses. Suddenly you're having to spend an extra £15 to £35 per kid just for them to be able to do one. And then if they want to meet someone on top of that, you're spending even more money. So suddenly what may be seen as an affordable event becomes a whole lot more expensive because of how much stuff you actually have to pay to do. If you wanted to do one workshop, one meet and greet and one stage door experience, you could be adding approximately £150 to your total spend. And that's just on one day. I also think this next statistic is really interesting. I mentioned earlier that the ticket price was down this year over last year. Last year there were 100 things to do, meaning per thing to do for free you were paying £1.12. This year the weekend price was £75, like I mentioned earlier, with there being a total of 84 free things to do, which again was £1.12 per free thing to do, look at or browse. So technically, whilst yes the event was cheaper this year than it was last year, the cost per thing to do, look at, see, browse, things like that was actually the same, which I just thought was really interesting, and I didn't really know where else to put that in the video, so I thought I'd put it here. Now, of course, it's not for me to say whether the entry price of £45 to £75 across the weekend is worth it or not to you guys. Everyone has a different budget at the end of the day. I just do find it very frustrating when entry costs a certain amount, but beyond that is pay to play with pretty much everything else, and so I thought it bared mentioning. The next low light, and one I think that really rubbed me the wrong way, was lots of the advertising for the show being like, oh my god, this show is in attendance, Hercules, Matilda, things like that. And if you didn't want to pay for a workshop that featured, say, a Hercules dance number or a Matilda dance number, all you got of that show was basically a poster you could take pictures in front of. Let that sink, like a poster I could take a picture in front of. And if you got there before it ran out, you could also make a paper plane at the Matilda one, but they ran out pretty quickly, at least on the Saturday. I don't know if they restocked for the Sunday, but yeah, it was literally just, you could take a picture in front of the poster. Guys, I could walk across London and do exactly the same thing outside the theatre. Heck, I could take the London Underground for a whopping total of £5.40 and find a poster and do exactly the same thing, right? That really irritated me because I got really excited when I found out, oh my god, Hercules is going to be in attendance, just for it to be a photo op. There wasn't even anyone there that could tell me any information about the show. Just overall really disappointing. I just wish if you were going to advertise a show as being there was just a little bit more to do beyond just taking a picture. I didn't really learn anything about the show. I didn't feel any closer to the show like I was supposed to. I just was like, yeah, I could see the show for cheaper than this, and you've made me pay £75 for the whole weekend to take a picture in front of this. Make that make sense to me. We're going to move through this pretty quickly, but I obviously mentioned earlier when I talked about the positive performances that there were some drawbacks to the performances, and that was more specifically the performances marketed as surprise cast reunions. Now, if you look in the programme, here's one I made earlier. We had, I don't know if you can see it, a surprise cast reunion. Nowhere anywhere throughout the entire event did it say what that cast was. We then come to find out it is a Clueless cast reunion, okay? And if you know me, you know I love Clueless the musical. In fact, I've got an entire bag of merch sat just off camera over there. I love this musical. I know so many people didn't, but I did. And so to get to hear those songs live again was fantastic. We had Keelan, we had Emma, we had Ramona, and we had China Rose, okay? And they were all fantastic. We got Perfect. Oh, this is me if I can remember the name of the song. Perfect, New Girl. We get a little bit of Hopeless Case. And then we had Reasonable Doubt, and then the Act 1 finale. Reasonable Doubt being a highlight of mine. I love that song. It's so funny. It's so silly. It's so funny. And of course, Keelan smashed it. That was great. What wasn't great was the number of people that didn't find out about this until it was over, who said, hey, I would have loved to have been there if they told us. Of course, the event organisers know well in advance of this that slot, that surprise cast reunion, is going to be a Clueless cast reunion. So why didn't they advertise it? I think later in the day that I was gutted I missed, they did a Bonnie and Clyde cast reunion. I think it was just Jordan Luke Gage and Frances Mailey McCann. But still, getting the chance to hear Bonnie and Clyde live again, I would love that, okay? Again, another one of my favourite shows. And so for stuff not to be correctly advertised or correctly signposted, I think is a bit disappointing. It does leave people feeling really left out, particularly if it is a show they absolutely love and adore. No one wants to be left feeling disappointed, but when you miss out on the chance to see one of your favourite musical performances, you can't really help but feel any other way, particularly if in this instance with both these cases, with both these shows, they're closed. They're not coming back in the near future. So this was potentially people's last chance for a while to see some of these shows performed live. So why on earth, Musical Con, were you not advertising it? Particularly when some, correct me if I'm wrong, let me cite my sources, cast reunion I Have a Dream. So some of the cast reunions are advertised as full-on cast reunions. They're not advertised as surprise cast reunions. So unless these are all printed and made prior to them confirming things like the Clueless cast reunion, then fair enough. But like, I don't know, tell people throughout the day, be like, come back to the main stage for this later, and people will know. Because I know I was certainly left disappointed, and I can imagine so many other people were left disappointed as a result of just not knowing. And that's so frustrating because that's so easily remedied. And I know this has happened in years past as well. They have surprise cast reunions every year, and so for them just to not advertise them and not tell people about them, I totally see why people are frustrated and pissed off about it. Carrying on, okay, the next one I think is one that doesn't necessarily personally affect me, but I can totally see how it really impacts others, and that's the fact that people were paying for meet and greets just to see other people able to chat and talk and take selfies with these performers for free because these performers were just wandering around the show floor. When you're paying 40 quid to meet somebody and take a picture with them and have a chat with them, and then you see someone, say me, having a chat with them on the show floor later for free, of course you're going to be pissed off, right? Who wouldn't be? You've just had to pay money for the same experience someone else is getting there. The only difference is you have a branded Musical Con background. Who wouldn't be annoyed by that? I'm not saying talent can't wander around and enjoy the venue and enjoy the show as well. It does happen occasionally at other cons, some more than others, but there needs to be a unified approach in terms of if you're gonna get people to pay for an experience, then people shouldn't be able to get that for free. Now, I know some performers were saying, look, I'm really sorry, we're not allowed to take pictures, we're not allowed to sign anything because other people have paid for it, but this wasn't applied across everybody. I had a lovely chat with Jade Marvin, wonderful human being, but I also appreciate that other people had paid quite a bit of money to meet her earlier in the day, so totally understand, like I keep saying, why people are annoyed by that. I'm not saying you need to keep your talent on a tighter leash, that's unfair, they are human beings at the end of the day, but have quite a strict, sorry, we don't take pictures with people who haven't paid. You know, I know they maybe don't want to leave fans disappointed, but some sort of even application of a rule in some way would be great, particularly when some people are spending a lot of money to have a similar experience. It just seems really unfair. Next up, it was mentioned a lot in my video last year, but I have to mention it again. My God, is this event loud? Okay, they have done little things here and there. They've moved the workshop space and the backstage stage kind of into another room, which does help a little bit, and the backstage stage, not that they were handing them out loads, does have like silent disco headphones so you can just hear who's talking on stage as opposed to kind of hearing everything else. But the main stage is so loud that you can hear it everywhere. I went to the toilet down the hall from the convention space and I could still hear what was happening on the main stage. That's how loud it was. My ears were left ringing as well. When you stand close enough to the front, it's so loud to the point it felt like the speakers were peaking at points. Like, you know when it just like a sound just becomes painfully loud? That's what I felt. And because the main stage is going non-stop and is so loud non-stop, you spend the majority of the con, if you are trying to have a conversation with people, you know those lovely conversations I said I really enjoyed earlier, you end up having to shout to people and like really listen to what they're saying. And so I'm just sort of like, I'm trying to have this lovely interaction with a new friend and I'm stood here like screaming at them so they can hear me over whoever's tra-la-la-ing on stage. Lots of other conventions, when they do have a main stage area like this, be it for showing movie previews, having panels, things like that, they are what are in a separate room, not the small, slightly quieter things. So the fact that the main stage has remained loud and seemingly after last year only gotten louder continues to baffle me, because it makes the event really quite unenjoyable. There is very few moments of reprieve from this constant noise, and actually I really enjoyed the moments where the main stage wasn't going. You're like, okay, calm, I can think, I can go and read the signs that the amazing Lion King display has, I can go and chat with the small businesses, I can go and compliment someone on their cosplay without approaching them and instantly just, I like your cosplay! Like, that's not That's not how you want to interact with someone for the first time, at least not me. And so if we could like turn it down, move the main stage somewhere else, have the main stage in the separate room, maybe put some like sound dampening curtains around some of it, anything to just make it a little bit quieter and therefore a little bit less overwhelming and constantly loud all the time, I think that would be really beneficial. And I think that would also just be really beneficial to anyone like me who is neurodivergent and gets overstimulated as is. When you have constant loud noise like that, on top of the fact that like people are bumping into you and there's bright lights everywhere and there's just a lot going on, just a bit less of the loud noise, okay? It was so loud. My ears were ringing when I got home on Saturday, and that's not normal. They weren't that bad after the F1 race I went to last year, let alone this shit. Like, my goodness, it was just so loud. Like, I can't convey to you how loud it was. And I know the main stage is like such a big draw and these performances are such a big draw, but there has to be a way to make it quieter but still enjoyable. Carrying on, I think the next low light has to be use of space, okay? I will say, obviously last year I flagged the fact that the kind of marketplace area was arranged in kind of clusters of islands. They did change that this year. It kind of worked better than the island in some ways. However, the gaps between stalls and things look much bigger on this map than they felt in real life. This was the door everyone entered through, so instantly you're going through and then you're just stuck, and so you're stuck in this really quiet, it was only really 2 people wide, so we ended up with people like flattened against the wall trying to let people pass, a lot of bottlenecks, and there were times that we just ground to a halt. It's like being in a traffic jam. You're like, I can't move. People couldn't see what the stalls had for sale. People, you know, were trying not to knock into each other, be polite, give each other room. But there just was no space to do that. This, in combination with the fact that this was all dead space, okay? And so was a lot of this, right? There were a couple tables here that people could use if they wanted to do, like, the food, which you can just about see here. But this was a dark, blank, undecorated area which people sat on the floor and scrolled on their phones on, which to me doesn't scream musical theatre, personally. And when here is so crowded, why couldn't we just fill this space with some of it? Spread it out a bit more. It would also make your super quiet event look more busy, okay? It would make it feel like there was more to do just because you have a bigger footprint. So yeah, that was really frustrating. I do appreciate the fact that they did try a different shape after the failings of last year. I just don't think having it right in the way of the door was maybe the right way to go about it, personally. And I feel like, okay, I've been going on quite a lot, and I was going to talk about the cosplay competition, but the impression I've got from chatting to the cosplayers that were there this year, the same issues that happened last year happened this year again. So if you did want to go and check out the issues that happened with the cosplay competition, do feel free to go and check out last year's video. It is all chaptered down on the scroll bar, so you can find it quite easily. I really do recommend that, particularly if you are someone who does really like cosplay, as I think the cosplay is part of what makes this event so bright and fun. And oh my days, if I could just take a moment, I really should have put this in the highlights, shouldn't I? But if I could just take a moment to talk about the fact that the cosplay at this event is always so incredible. The amazing cosplays I saw, guys, so stunning, okay? And I'm just so jealous that I lack all creative talent. I can't make shit like that. My brother can. My brother, if you didn't know, is a highly decorated cosplayer, and I'm so jealous of their ability to just take stuff, okay? So when I see other people, oh my god, guys, the number of you insanely talented people cosplaying from Starlight Express, new and old, insane, okay? None of those costumes are easy to make, from my understanding, and the fact that they looked so fucking good, insane. My creative talent, this was all I had, okay? And they have turned out quite cute, I will admit, but the fact that there were people in such incredible 6 costumes never failed to disappoint. The alphabets we saw, I mean, everything, even down to my little Book of Mormons, they were, everyone looked incredible, and it made me so jealous. I wish I had creative talent. But yeah, the cosplayers, okay? The cosplayers that attend MusicalCon are such a big part of their marketing and such a big part of what makes the event so vibrant. So to basically say F you to them by giving them a lackluster cosplay competition really rubs me the wrong way. Cosplayers are some of the most dedicated, incredible people in the world to their craft, and they deserve to be recognised for that, and they deserve a competition that also recognises that in them. Fuck it, let's talk about what's wrong with the cosplay competition. We've come this far, we might as well continue. My brother is a highly decorated cosplayer, and therefore I feel like unlike other content creators, other theatre influencers, I'm uniquely positioned to comment on this because I feel like I know a lot more about cosplay than they do. It being a low light isn't a reflection of the incredible cosplayers, like I said. It is more of a reflection of the poor organisation and poor understanding of what the event organisers are actually trying to do and trying to put on. Of course, it is worth saying every cosplay competition is run slightly differently, but I do think there are standards and expectations that come with it, particularly from serious cosplayers, which MusicalCon has attracted in the past, though it seems a lot of them chose not to come back this year because of last year's competition. And I was able to chat to a few that competed this year to get a sense of what had changed, if anything. Now, from my chats with people that did compete this year, the biggest change that it seems to be this year versus last year was the fact that there was actually time for people to chat with the judges and for the judges to see the costumes from up close as opposed to just far away under the stage lights this year, which I do think is beneficial. But the impression I'm getting, and correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously I wasn't there backstage looking at how all this was happening, but it was only for the top 10, so only the top 10 people that compete are eligible to win, essentially. Everyone gets the opportunity to walk on stage, but only the top 10 get to kind of compete / be judged on stage. So at least there was an opportunity for that this year, unlike last year. However, it did seem that, again, as with last year, lots of people weren't notified when they had to come back to walk in the masquerade, which is where everyone can walk. Those that didn't make the top 10, quite a few of the people that have reached out to me as a result of that said they felt like they were being treated quite differently to those in the top 10, which is so disappointing to see, because regardless of how you think the cosplay looks, you don't get to decide how hard someone's worked on that or how important that outfit is to them. So treating anyone like that is just icky to me. So I really hope that not too many people had that experience, as that's just not very nice. And then again, I wasn't there on Sunday, so this is all kind of secondhand information. So again, if you were there and felt very differently about it, do let me know in the comments. I would love to discuss about this. But the impression I got again with this year's competition is that you're not being judged necessarily in the same way you would be in a traditional cosplay competition. Last year, it was very glaring to me. I felt like Shanae Holmes had no idea what she was doing in the way she was questioning the cosplayers on the stage. She was asking them, what does this mean to you? You know, how much did you spend on it? Firstly, this is often shit that should be discussed backstage in pre-judging, things like that. But also, how much a costume costs should have no bearing on whether it wins or not. Right? Like, that doesn't matter, because actually at the end of the day you can make the same costume with two very different budgets and have them look both equally as incredible. Like I said, I'd love to know if she repeated this year, as it is generally seen as bad etiquette to ask things like that in a cosplay competition, particularly like in front of an audience. But of course I didn't see any of this year, so if you did and you felt she didn't do this, then of course let me know. And again, in my chat with this year, so 2025's cosplayers, there didn't really seem to be any sort of formalized craftsmanship judging or making requirements, which are often seen as standard in cosplay competitions. Given how much I do think this convention gains from having the cosplayers in attendance, I do wish, like I said, that they provided the cosplayers with a better and more rigorous competition. And so it is frustrating not to see that. So if anyone from MusicalCon has found this video and has watched this far without rage quitting, essentially, here is kind of how I would structure the cosplay competition moving forwards, because I think it would give you more credibility, attract more cosplayers, and yeah, just give cosplayers a fair competition after they've all worked so hard on what they're creating and presenting to you. I think the biggest thing you need to do is definitely establish your judging criteria. Is it on performance? Is it on craftsmanship? Is it on accuracy? It can be a combination of all of these things. There's no right way to do it, but just so everyone knows, I guess, not only the people competing, but also the audience as well. The next thing is establishing a kind of made by you criteria. Lots of cosplay competitions operate on sort of a 70% rule. You need to have made about 70% of your cosplay to qualify, meaning people aren't winning in a costume that they bought and paid for. To do this, this often requires proof of a process, so a lookbook, documentation, things like that. But also basically the opportunity for the judges to chat one-on-one with the cosplayers with how they did certain things, what skills they learnt to do it, what techniques they used, all really valuable insight into how the costume came to be, which can then also add to kind of how it scores, really. And I think hopefully this gets across just exactly how you could better your cosplay competition in a way that, sorry, I just thought I saw a massive spider, sort of change and alter your cosplay competition in a way that which would actually attract more cosplayers, because you will be surprised the events a cosplayer attends just to win a cosplay competition, okay? And there's so many theatre cosplayers out there, right? You see them every year, even at Comic-Con, right? People are desperate for an excuse to wear these incredible costumes they've made. So give them a good, bloody, proper cosplay competition, and I promise you the cosplayers will follow. But said, okay, not just because my camera is running out of charge, but also because I feel like I can't keep being a negative Nancy for this entire video. Let's say we wrap this up as I give you my conclusion. Did I have fun at MusicalCon? Yes. As I said earlier, I wasn't sat there with a face like a wet weekend the whole time, although the several times I was caught on the Jumbotron might suggest otherwise. Though I do feel like it is very important to say that all of the things I enjoyed, be that chatting to people, the cosplayers, things like that, were not necessarily products of MusicalCon itself. These are all things I can do and enjoy at far cheaper events than MusicalCon, and therefore it feels kind of unfair giving MusicalCon all the credit for it, particularly when things like this are byproducts of any convention or even large gatherings of fans of anything anywhere, kind of like West End Live, which is free. For the minimum of £45, I do genuinely think you might be better off going into London and booking tickets to see a show. Heck, depending on how frugal you are and how fussy you are about what show you go and see, you might even get 2 shows for that price. There's even a lot of stagey stuff you can do in London that's free, like the V&A exhibits and even some backstage tours. You just have to book in advance. And so I do think, like I said last year, you can get a whole lot more bang for your buck if you want a stagey weekend in London than MusicalCon is able to provide, particularly if you aren't someone who wants to go to a stage school or is perhaps in a slightly older demographic than the young target audience this event seems to cater for. But there you have it. That is my full review of MusicalCon 2025. Jesus Christ, I've talked for a long time. You're probably sick of the sound of my voice, but just in case you aren't, please make sure you subscribe for more stagey videos in the future, and maybe go check out last year's review to see what else I had to say about this event. If anyone, like I said, from MusicalCon is watching and you'd like me to offer you some more free advice, feel free to reach out. I don't think you will be, bearing in mind sort of how things went down this year. But I'd like to put the offer out there anyway. If you've attended MusicalCon this year, like I said earlier, please share your own thoughts and experiences down in the comments, as I know my thoughts, feelings and opinions on this matter are far from the only experience people had, and I know so many people had an amazing time, and I'm so pleased to hear that. Genuinely, that's what events like this are all about. One more time, remember to hit that like button if you did enjoy this video. Make sure to subscribe for more, and as always, my lovelies, I will see you in the next one. Bye!